Welcome to the Prime Property Finance Podcast with Gareth Morgan and Mark Watts. This unique podcast will dive deep into all areas of property investing finance, going behind the scenes with property professionals, investors and clients. Between us, we have 35 plus years experience in property finance. The podcast has been launched to share knowledge, mindset requirements and experiences of successful investors and professionals. We aim to simplify many of the complicated areas of finance and investing and provide valuable and easy to implement tips. Keep an eye out for our new longer episodes every Tuesday and our shorter ones every Friday.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Prime Property Finance Podcast. My name is Mark, and in today's episode we're going to look at independent legal advice, so ILA, and we're going to cover off things such as what is it, if you've never heard of it before, costs associated to it, why it's required, and some of the scenarios in which it would be required in. If you've had a mortgage in a limited company before, you may be familiar with this, or you certainly may have signed the documentation but not fully understood exactly why you need this in the first instance. So we're going to take a bit of a look into this in this short episode this week. So without further ado, let's get into it. Independent legal advice, what is it and why do we need it? Well, in its name, there's the clue, it's independent. Now, surely all legal advice is independent. Yes, it is. However, this is independent of the transaction itself. So whilst you will have a solicitor that is helping you to go through the legal due diligence or the legal process of a mortgage or borrowing within a limited company, you will still need to get an advice around some elements of the security, and that will then be independent. So independent of the case itself is what we're looking at for this. So what is independent legal advice and where does it come into play? So if you are borrowing money within a limited company, there will be an expectation that you provide something called a personal guarantee. And we've covered this in other episodes around security structures and what is required. So where you provide a personal guarantee, there is a requirement that you actually get independent legal advice to support the signing of that personal guarantee. The reason for it is that you can't then say at a later date that you didn't fully understand the document that you were signing. It's become more and more prevalent. It wasn't, say, 15 years ago. There was you can or you may not. You can opt in or opt out. It now has become mandatory in, I'd say, 99.9% of cases these days. So what is ultimately going to happen is you're going to take this personal guarantee document that you're due to sign. You're going to take that with you to a solicitor that's independent of the case. And they're going to talk you through the liabilities to you as an individual if you were to sign this document or when you sign this document. So they explain everything to you, which I'm sure you're fully aware of anyway, but they will further explain it to you, explain the consequences of not fulfilling your obligations to the lender and what that means to you personally. And then that will rubber stamp that you understood exactly what it was you were signing in the event that that personal guarantee comes into play. That's what it's ultimately boiling down to. Now, independent legal advice can often be seen as just another part of a process, an unnecessary part of the process in many respects, and it has a cost associated to it as well. However, it is an important part of the process, as I said, so that lenders have the comfort that you've signed a document that you fully understand the implications of signing. All too often, personal guarantees have been signed historically, not fully understanding what that means because it's in a limited company, limited liability. But what this personal guarantee does is effectively tie you as the director or the shareholder into the deal and make you personally liable for something that the company has borrowed. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. Now, costs will vary massively. I've heard quotes as low as £150 per person, right up to £500. I have heard a little bit more than that, but that was the extreme circumstance. They needed it put into place sort of within the next hour or two to complete the deal. And it's often something that gets left till the very last minute and can delay your deal from completing. So back to the cost. £150, but it's per person. So if you have got 3 or 4 people that are in this guarantee, which is not unusual, then you are looking to pay a per person cost. Okay. And as I say, if that goes up to 500, that'll be 500 per person and so on. So sometimes it can be a not an insignificant cost to getting it as well. Okay. Speed is very much down to how quickly you can get in front of the solicitor that's going to do it for you. So not all solicitors will only advise on personal guarantees. And there's a very good reason for it, which is tied to why there's a cost. And that is because if the solicitor advises you, they are taking on the liability of that advice. Okay, so that sits against their personal indemnity or professional indemnity insurance. So they are advising, and if it transpires that advice was incorrect or in any way, then there is recourse back to them as a professional that has advised. Hence, there is a cost to it. So they are taking on a risk, therefore they'll charge. And that is why you'll see that as well. And that is also why some solicitor firms don't advise on personal guarantees or don't do the independent legal advice, because they don't see that the reward is worth the risk, and they'd rather work with bigger relationships and so on and so forth. Okay. There are some online providers of this as well who can do it for the lower end of the prices. So it's worth checking them out, and they can often get it turned around a little bit quicker as well. So they can do it remote if you are struggling to find a solicitor in your local area that will provide the independent legal advice. What I would say is, please don't leave this to the last minute. This is something that will stop everything from proceeding. You're better off getting your solicitor booked nice and early, knowing that it's coming down the line, that if you are doing a mortgage in a limited company, there will be this requirement for independent legal advice. Therefore, just get ahead of the game, find someone who will do it for you, and then book them in, get in there nice and early. It will also hopefully help keep the cost down as well, because as we all know, if something needs to be pushed to the top of the pile, you ultimately need to pay a premium for that. So yeah, getting ahead of this should hopefully keep the cost down for you as well. And also, if there's more than one of you, trying to organize diaries for 2, 3, 4 people to all go in and do their independent legal advice and so on can just be hard work. So yeah, get ahead of the curve on that front. It will be needed. So what scenarios are there then for independent legal advice? Well, as I said, anybody that is connected to the loan and is offering a personal guarantee. So not all directors have to offer a personal guarantee. In most circumstances, they will, but there are certain scenarios where not every director will offer one. Now, that is more for your bespoke lending, commercial lending, and that sort of thing. Traditionally, where it is a straightforward mortgage and there's a requirement for a personal guarantee, there's little negotiation to be done. It's just everybody gives the PG accordingly. So that is something to bear in mind as well. So anybody who is signing a personal guarantee will be required to get the independent legal advice. Now, the other scenarios where somebody might need independent legal advice but isn't actually borrowing the money is where they are a party to the security that is being offered. However, they are not a party to the loan. So they are not a beneficiary of the lending, but they are tied to the security. So what do I mean by that is, let's say you had Mr. and Mrs. that had their home, okay, outside of the deal, and it was being used as additional security for, say, a bridging loan, okay? Mr. is the only applicant that is on the company, but wishes to use the jointly owned family home as additional security for his property deal. That is a scenario where Mrs. is not a beneficiary of the proceeds of the loan, however, is taking the risk in equal measure to the person who's ultimately borrowing, okay? Now, Mrs. will be required to go and get independent legal advice so that she fully understands the consequence of her offering her part of the security to a deal she is actually not a party to, okay? So there will be a requirement for independent legal advice to be sought for Mrs. in addition to Mr. Now, that's sometimes a cost that's overlooked as well, and also, sometimes the other party doesn't know that they need this legal advice, and then things can go can slow down, or in fact actually stop the deal if it's not fully understood what's entailed in the process itself. Okay, so independent legal advice, super important. It's there to protect you as the borrower as much as it is to protect the lender as well. So take it with the seriousness that it is meant to have. Don't try and avoid it. It's unavoidable as well, and also try and get in there, as I say, ahead of the curve. It will be required. Get it booked in nice and early, get it done. It's the same as your insurances. Insurances are often one of those things that happen on the last day of completion, and everyone's running around to speak to their broker to try and get an insurance policy in place or something like that. We know it's needed. You might as well do it nice and early, so there's no last minute rush. The same with ILA, independent legal advice. We know it's needed. It will be asked for. And, if you can't get in front of your solicitor for a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on capacity, that's going to delay the deal completing by a week or two, okay, which, in some instances can be catastrophic, especially if that was an auction purchase, for example, okay? So don't bury your head in the sand with it. It is going to be needed if you're borrowing within a limited company. Get your ILA sorted, speak to a solicitor, or find firms online that will help you get that done. So there we go. That's a whistle-stop tour of independent legal advice, why it's required, and what you can expect through the process as well. Now, if you've got any questions, as always, you can get in touch with us. Our contact details are in the show notes. And if you've got any topics that you'd like us to cover off, things or questions that you'd like to ask, then again, let us know in the show notes. Our contact details are there. We'd be happy to pick up some questions. We're starting to get some in now, so we'll be doing some episodes around some of the questions we've been getting as well. And thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you have learned something and have some tips to take away. We'd be very grateful if you enjoyed the show. You could give us a review and share with anyone that you know that may be interested. And of course, subscribe to the show so you can get notified when a new episode is released. If you'd like us to answer any questions or go deeper on a specific topic, please drop us a message at primeproperty.finance. See you on the next episode.